Coming up next is Dr. Kimberly Taylor. Here's your chance to talk about what matters to you. Although you will receive helpful advice from Dr. Taylor, remember, this is not to be construed as a form of psychotherapy, diagnosis, or treatment, and cannot replace a therapeutic relationship with a mental health professional. You can reach Dr. Taylor by calling 564-1290 or toll free at 866-564-1290. You can also listen live on the internet at drkimtaylorshow.com. So here now is Dr. Kimberly Taylor.
Do you ever wonder why there are so many self-help books out there? It seems that the industry that's dedicated to telling us how to improve our lives has developed into an $11 billion industry. And this ever-expanding self-betterment marketplace shows no signs of decline. Rather, these self-help books have become the world's largest selling genre of books, with 80% of the self-help book sales coming from repeat buyers. So let's face it, there are manuals on how to live your life and how not to. There are books dedicated to telling us how to improve our lives and the steps we need to take to get there. And some of these titles alone are laughable, like How to Seem Like a Better Person Without Actually Improving Yourself, or Self-Loathing for Beginners. Or how about this one? Healing Yourself with Wishful Thinking. Or my personal favorite, Everything is Wrong with You. So, self-help books, do they really work? The quick answer is yes and no. And what I mean by this is just buying the book is not going to help. While it may look good on the bookshelf next to all the other self-help covers, change is not going to happen through osmosis. Even reading the book cover to cover is not magically going to instill the changes of the promises it has within. So if anything is going to work, you have to first have a formula for change. It's not enough to say, I want, and expect that it will happen. So what should the formula be? Maybe me plus effort equals change. I like that. Yeah, that will do. Without me or without effort, nothing will change. Also, the inverse is going to be true. Change will not happen without effort and me. Therefore, if you want change to occur in your life, you have to be willing to put me and effort into the same equation in order to come up with the results that affect change. So I want to go over a few principles that I put down here that you need to apply when reading any self-help book. The first one is you have to decide to be helped. That seems obvious, right? But the truth is you have to decide you want to be better. So first, raise your standards. If you're not open to this concept, then nothing is going to get through, and for sure, nothing will change. Next, decide to be resolute about change. See it as an investment in yourself because you're worth it. Keep it simple. See it as one step onto the right path and one step off. So even if you get off track one day, recalibrate, just like the GPS, and get back on. And stop needing perfection in order to proceed. Number 3 would be do it for you and please yourself. And do nothing unless it agrees with your own reason and your own common sense. There's a lot of crazy writing out there in some of these books. So I want you to have the courage to live a life that's going to be true to yourself and not the life others expect of you. The fourth one would be that no one can do this work for you. Self-help, that's what it means, is literally helping yourself. No way around it. You can learn the lessons in a self-help book, but you're the only one who is going to be able to apply them. And you have to get real and be 100% responsible for your life. The next one is be specific and set realistic goals. Nothing stops us in our tracks like expecting too much too soon. So I like to remember how Rome was built. One brick at a time. And eventually, there was Rome. Number 6, You can change yourself. And I want you to remember, you cannot change others, so stop trying. Whatever your goal is, act as if you are that person and believe in yourself. Number 7 would be to quit waiting for a clear set of instructions and get your own journal, put your name on the front of it, write down your goals inside, and then write down the steps that you're willing to take to get there. And so the last one really needs to be, you must start. Start right from where you are and know that with a committed decision you will achieve your goals. But you want to hold yourself accountable and to track your success. How change happens is by seeing it, by having it reflected in the steps that you take so that you can actually track that you are making progress. Everything needs to be seen as a step in the direction of your goal. So really, the only way that you can fail is that you give up and stop trying. There are so many different messages in our culture about how to be successful. What I want you to do is have the courage to choose which definition of success that you want, and then to start. So if you have a question today, if you're wondering about how to get started, if you're struggling with this, or even if you're stuck, I'm going to be here for the next hour, so just give me a call. You can also send in any questions that you have by email. Just go to Dr. Kim at drkimtaylorshow.com. So give me a call at 564-1290 or toll free at 866-564-1290. We're going to take a short break, and then I'm going to be back with you to take your calls. I'm Kimberly Taylor, and you're listening to KZSB AM 1290.
You are listening to Dr. Kimberly Taylor. You can reach her by calling 564-1290 or toll free at 866-564-1290.
So I'm here with Sandy Jacoy. She is our screener, as you all now know. And Sandy, I have a question for you.
Oh, here we go.
How many self-help books do you have on your shelf?
In which room?
Stacked floor to ceiling, right?
Floor to ceiling, and most of them unread.
How come?
Really, most of them unread, if I have to be honest. You know, I get into them, I buy them for a specific reason, looking for something out of it, and can't find it. Doesn't apply, can't get it, put it on the shelf, look for the next one.
Okay, so this is very, very common because it doesn't speak your language, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right. It needs to be simple,
Mm-hmm.
to the point, and I can get it.
Well, and I think that's why a lot of people try to buy a book, because they are seeking. People are always seeking, and they're trying to get better. But then they find a book, they start to read it, they kind of get lost. There's too many case histories maybe, or it just gets too complex, and they put it down, put it on the shelf, and then later on they go back and they buy a new one because they still want to be better.
This one's going to be different.
This one is going to be...
This new book is the one that's going to make the difference.
Okay. Yes, right. I had a client that came in for the very first time, and he sat down and he says, okay, I've looked on the internet. I've looked at all these self-help books. I've climbed the mountaintop. I still don't know what the answer is. So I said to him, well, what is the question? He goes,
I have no idea. That's what I'm here for. I don't know.
Yes, yeah.
Don't you think, Kim, that part of the process of being able to find a good self-help book is really being clear about what it is you're trying to get out of it? What are you looking for? What's the issue you're trying to address?
Yes, you also need to know that the answer is not in any book, because what we did get to with this client is that the answer is within. It has always been there. It will always be there. The answer is within. So what you want is that you want to work with someone, or you want to read a book that tells you how to find your answer for yourself and to help bring that out.
So what's your favorite self-help book?
Do you know, one of the ones that I like, and I'll say one of the ones because I do have a few that I do like. I have a list of them that are also on my shelf that I don't. But there is a book called Changeology, and it's by Dr. Jim Norcross. And why I like this particular book is it does give a template about how to, so that you take your goal and what you want. And it sets out steps for you about how to achieve that. And that's the kind of self-help that I think that most people need, not to be told to learn a whole new language or to do something totally foreign to them that someone else has done and it has worked for them, but it's not necessarily going to work for the person that reads the book. So that is a book.
Your language.
Yep, and it's a book that is kind of basic and simple, and people can get through it. Do you have a favorite?
I do as well. I have a few favorites, but I think my best that's been so effective in my life is just the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's because it's got the support and the accountability and simple steps about how to overcome something. And I think it's one of the greatest books that were ever written.
Mm-hmm. And that's not just for AA. That is for just life in general. Great steps to be able to generalize to your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, we're going to start the ball rolling here. We're going to take some phone calls. So, Sandy, thank you very much for being our screener. And you who would like to call in, Sandy will be the first one that you will speak to, and she will help you form your question. So, shall we go to the first call?
Yes.
Great. We're on the phone now with Jennifer. Welcome to the program, Jennifer.
Hi, Dr. Taylor.
How can I help you?
Well, I have a big problem. I have two daughters, and the oldest is 12, and a parent came up to me the other day and said that my daughter was smoking pot and drinking with other kids at school, and I just don't see it, and I'm wondering, how should I handle this?
And what did this friend tell you?
She said that she saw my daughter out back in the on the field, and that there was a bunch of kids there, and they were all smoking pot together.
And what did she do about it?
Because she's my friend, she came to me. She didn't do anything else.
But there were other kids there, too? Were one of those kids hers?
That I don't know.
But
I don't think so.
Did she report it to the school?
No.
So she just came to you and told you that she thinks that your daughter might be smoking pot.
Right.
Are there any unusual behaviors that you are seeing with your daughter?
Well, my daughter's been really good in school, and I've started to see some problems with her classes, but I'm also going through a divorce, so it's a hard time for the whole family. So I don't think, I think it's more to do with that than anything else.
Have you sat down with your 12-year-old and talked about drugs and alcohol use and had that kind of conversation with her in the past?
I have talked to her about it, and I asked her after my friend told me, and she says that she does not do any drugs. I did find a beer can once in our backyard that was unaccountable, but she said that it was her friend's and it was not hers. So, I don't know.
You seem like you don't want to know that this might possibly be true and that you're trying to deny it because you're too exhausted to try and deal with this right now, too. Is that correct?
Probably.
So you said that you're going through a divorce. Are you then working out of the home and not home a lot of times?
I work a lot. I have a full-time job and a couple side jobs, too.
And so what would you do if, in fact, your daughter was using drugs?
I honestly don't know. This is the first time I've ever been, faced with that.
Mm-hmm. What I'm trying to understand from you is, do you have any belief that this could be true? Are there things that you're seeing about your daughter that it has changed in her behavior, whether she's becoming more irritable, whether she is slipping at school and not doing as well as she used to? Is she staying up late at night? Is she sleeping too much? Does she have any difficulty thinking or doing her homework or solving those kinds of problems?
She's staying up a lot later and she's sleeping in more. It's hard because I don't want to believe she's doing drugs. I don't want to believe that she's doing any of that. So I look for other reasons why she could be behaving differently.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's easy to put it on the divorce and my working a lot, and but so I don't know. I really.
But what I think that this maybe is a wake-up call is that you have to start to get plugged back into your kids. You have to start to have this conversation with them more on an ongoing basis so that you are closer to them and know what they're into, know who their friends are, and know how they spend their free time.
That would be a start.
Yes, because I can hear from you that you're probably feeling guilty as well as exhausted, as well as maybe even somewhat depressed because of the change in your circumstances also. But what it sounds most like is that you've lost touch with your daughter and in being able to talk with her, spend time with her, communicate with her, get a feel for how she is, where she's at, what she's thinking. And you really need to be able to do this, especially with a 12-year-old, because if they're not getting this kind of attention at home, they are going to go out and seek it with their friends.
I see that.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be hard, though, because right now it's a hard balance between being the sole support right now
Mm-hmm.
and being home.
Hi, we're on the phone now with Jim. Hi, Jim. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Dr. Taylor. I'm just wondering how to get rid of these negative feelings I've been having for quite some time.
Okay. What is keeping you from feeling positive?
I can't do the things that I used to do and want to do because of pain issues.
Okay. What is going on?
I've had 6 or 7 surgeries on my back. I've got a really bad back, spine, upper and lower, and it limits me to what I can do, and I can't, walk more than about an hour, or stand for about more than an hour, or sit for about an hour. I just would love to go golfing. I can't work anymore.
Okay. How long has this been going on?
It's been about 10 years.
So it's been a long time.
Yes.
Okay. And do you feel like your mood is changing with all that you've been going through and all that you've had to deal with?
Yeah, I've been staying strong and, trying to hide all this to everybody. I don't like everybody knowing that I'm in a lot of pain, but it just takes me down pretty bad. It puts me in real negative spots, and
Okay.
I don't think it's going to get any better.
Well, first off, I'm really sorry that you're going through such a hard time with this right now. And it sounds like it has been going on for a long time for you.
Yes, I've just put on a different face.
Yeah, so you are really in a tough spot in your life.
Yes.
Do you feel like you are getting the right treatment now? Do you feel like you are trying to get better?
I think they've done the best they can.
Are you afraid you won't get any better than this?
Yes. This isn't how I want to spend the rest of my life, is living in this much pain.
So they are done with any of the surgeries, but have they talked to you more about how to manage the pain?
No, just medication. I'm getting tired of taking all the medications, too.
But this is part of what is going to be, really, it sounds like, the rest of your life in trying to deal with some amount of pain.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. When someone has a lot of pain in their life, it's very hard to have it not affect your mood and to not affect the way that you feel about yourself. Sounds like you definitely have something, more going on, and perhaps more can be worked out, and you have to find a way to, solve some of that. But it's really difficult if you let it also take you down emotionally.
Yeah, that's what I find. It does that quite a bit, and I know everybody says the pain shouldn't define me, but it does. I mean, I can't Sometimes I don't have a choice.
Does it happen all day, every day, or do you have moments that you are free of it and you have then episodes that it's worse?
No, I've never been pain-free for the last 10 years. It's a constant. It's all the time.
Well, there could be support groups that you could go to of other people who are suffering with this that just help you have a place that you can actually go and talk about it and try to process some of it. And then to work also on the other end of it so that you can keep yourself still feeling positive, maybe even hopeful, but to be able to change your mind and your thoughts about it so that you can find some peace with what you have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. That's a good idea. I could try that.
Sometimes also within these groups, they practice a mindful kind of a meditation where it's not that it relieves the pain that is going on because that's physical, but what it does is it helps to change and helps you to process the feelings that you're having about it in the present. And that can also be of great benefit to someone, that you're really dealing with the secondary symptoms of what is going on, and that is what we've just been talking about how you feel about yourself and how you feel emotionally about what you're going through.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know where to check out. I guess I could check the hospitals, or something for the if they have groups.
Yes, that might be a good place to start. And what I'll do is I will hand you back to Sandy, and she can give you some phone numbers for some places that you might call to check that out within the place that you live.
Oh, that'd be great.
Okay?
Okay. Well, I appreciate that.
All right, Jim. Good luck with that.
Okay, thanks very much.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm Kimberly Taylor, and you're listening to KZSB AM 1290.
You are listening to Dr. Kimberly Taylor. You can reach her by calling 564-1290 or toll free at 866-564-1290.
I am happy to have with me here Ann Bryant, who actually is from CALM, which is the Child Abuse Listening and Mediation. Ann teaches the child abuse prevention to the children in our schools from pre-K into junior high, and she's also known as the CALM lady by these students. So what I hear about you, Ann, is that you really love what you do and that your heart is really in helping kids. Tell us about that.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Taylor. I've been at CALM for 15 years, and for the last 10 years, it's been my absolute privilege to go into our area's public schools and serve from pre-K up through junior high and teach the children about child abuse prevention and about keeping themselves safe and helping them realize that they don't have to keep secrets about bad things that might be happening to them. And we teach them a specific program on steps they can take if they are being hurt or injured.
So what types of abuse do you actually cover in the classroom?
Well, it's all done in a very age-appropriate manner, so there's nothing scary or graphic in any of the presentations. And we cover physical abuse, emotional abuse, which I tell the children is something that happens to everyone at some point in their lives, sexual abuse, and neglect. And actually, neglect is what happens the most to children here in Santa Barbara County, and that's sometimes very surprising to not only the children, but to grown-ups as well.
So tell us what you mean by that and what that would actually look like.
So neglect can be anything from not taking care of the child's basic needs. So the law is looking for necessities of life, shelter, clothing, food, water, medicine, doctor visits, love and general care of the child, as well as making sure the child gets education. So really the basic necessities of life. I spend time explaining to the children that having less money does not mean that you are neglected, and that having an Xbox and new sneakers does not mean that you're not being neglected. They sometimes think that toys should be on that list. But it really is about the basic necessities of life, and it could even involve something like a parent that just simply ignores the child. So it could be emotional neglect, not just physical neglect.
So you are teaching them really how to be safe and when to speak up. So how do you do that with these different age groups?
Well, we've been doing it for quite a while at Calm. For one example, during the summers, I work at Safety Town, which is for children getting ready to go into kindergarten. And so all of the materials and all of the discussions are tailored for a particular age group. So from the very youngest, they still learn the basics. We talk about good touch, bad touch, and secret touch. We describe sexual abuse as secret touch for the smallest children. And for the youngest children, we talk about private parts, and their private parts being covered by their bathing suits and their underwear. With the older children, we're much more specific. We use the correct anatomical terms, so sometimes the children don't know those terms. Sometimes parents teach them funny nicknames for their penis or vagina. And so we make sure that they actually learn the correct anatomical terms. And for the older children, we talk about appropriate touch, inappropriate touch, and we also talk about neglect and animal abuse because there's a strong correlation between animal abuse and child abuse.
Okay. How do you get a sense that the kids actually gauge the importance of this and know the difference between when to come and tell someone and when something is really happening to them?
So for the older children, it's very interactive. I have them help me compile a list, which we write on the board, of touches that they think are appropriate. So they'll name everything from holding hands, having my back scratched, a pat on the shoulder, having somebody put their arm around you. And we also spend time talking to them about that they are the people that are in charge of their own body. So even if somebody wants to give them a good touch, like a hug, if they're uncomfortable with that person, or maybe it's a stranger, that they can be polite and refuse even a good touch if they don't want that touch. And I think that's something that parents don't always really think about. I think especially for little girls, we're sometimes socialized to be nice and not hurt anyone's feelings. So I think it's really important for both boys and girls that if they're around someone, that if they get a funny feeling someplace in their body that something just doesn't feel comfortable to them, that we respect that as the grown-ups, and we also make sure that they know that there are way more good people in the world and that they can go talk to an adult that they trust, and the adult will help them. We also reinforce the message that teachers are wonderful people to tell, and I explain to the children about the law that says that if somebody's hurting them and they tell their teacher or they come to me and tell me, that the law says we have to help them or we will actually get in trouble for not helping them. So I really try to reinforce to them that even if something bad has happened to them in the past, that it's still vitally important that they tell. Because people that hurt kids tend to continue to hurt kids. And so it's very funny, with the very littlest kids, they learn a safety yell, and I call it the superhero safety yell. And I let them practice yelling no or stop or help at me. And I tell them, I want you to hurt my ears, so yell as loud as you can. And they get a great lift out of being able to yell at a grown-up. But I think it's important because kids are trained to be nice. And it's important that they know that they can speak up for themselves and that they're in charge of their bodies and that people need to respect their bodies.
Well, and I think it's really great that you actually help them practice saying no and let them hear themselves saying it, because that is the hardest thing for a lot of people to do. And I think, as you say, girls are trained to say yes, to please, to take care of others. So that's a great message. And do you really feel like they really grasp that and get behind that?
They absolutely do.
Good.
Sometimes when I go back, each classroom gets 2 sessions about a week or 2 apart, and sometimes when I go back for the second session, they'll say, "Can we please yell at you again?" They want to do it for a second time, and I always tell them, I'm going to take a collection up for a hearing aid because it's unbelievable how loud they are. But they really do an amazing job, and occasionally I'll be out just doing my own thing, and in the course of my day-to-day life, and one of the kids will recognize me, and they'll call me the calm lady, and they'll come up and repeat the safety message to me. And I recently had it happen with a junior high kid who remembered me from Safety Town. So that was before they went into pre-K.
So
and
you
now
made a huge impression.
They absolutely remember. And I don't care if they remember my name as long as they remember the safety message.
So one of the major parts of this would be that often when people are abused, that the person who has done this tells them they must keep this a secret. So how do you talk to them about what to keep a secret and what not to?
That's a great question, and we spend a lot of time examining what is an appropriate secret to keep, or a happy secret, as I call them. And we'll cover things like somebody's having a surprise party, or you have something planned for someone in the future. It hasn't happened yet, but the person's going to be happy once it occurs. Things like birthdays, presents, trips. So anything that is in the context of something that is happy and joyful.
Or a surprise.
Those secrets are perfectly okay to keep. But then we talk about secrets that kids are never supposed to keep, and that would be a secret about any kind of abuse, whether it's physical abuse, of course, sexual abuse, any kind of neglect, and even any kind of emotional abuse, because even though we tend to discount the impact emotional abuse has, we know now from looking at brain scans of children that if they're growing up in a very chaotic environment where there's yelling going on all the time, that it actually physically alters the structures and development of their brains. So it's very important for the grown-ups in their lives to know that all of our homes should be a peaceful haven. And if it's not, that there's tons of support out in the community to help parents gain that perspective in their own houses.
So as kids are gaining some perspective about how to keep themselves safe and how to say no, how do you teach the parents at the same time that as these kids are coming home and they're being a little more assertive and a little more sure of themselves, how do you let the parents know that this is good, to encourage it?
I always send a letter home to the parents before the children have the program. The parents are allowed actually to opt the children out. Very few do. Most parents are quite willing to have the children take part in the program. But there's a letter that goes home that explains about the workbook that the children take home with them after the first session, and it requests that the parents go through the workbook with them. Those workbooks are in English and Spanish because we have a large population of parents that are monolingual. And some of the schools actually have a parent night at the beginning of the school year where the parents can come and I do a mock presentation for the parents and show them the films that the children see, so the parents can feel comfortable about sending their child to the presentation. But honestly, I wish I had more contact with parents. I think that would be really helpful.
Well, I think the good news is that with the kids learning this at these early stages, that they're going to be able to take that throughout their whole life and also, be there for their own children at some point in time. So we can kind of break this cycle and this not knowing and this issue of trying to keep it all a secret and to not talk about it. They're going to be much more open to do that. So we are going to take a short break here and we'll be right back. I'm Kimberly Taylor, and you're listening to KZSB AM 1290.
You are listening to Dr. Kimberly Taylor. You can reach her by calling 564-1290 or toll free at 866-564-1290.
My guest is known as the Calm Lady to all of the students at our local schools here, but her real name is Ann Bryant, and she works within the schools through Calm, trying to teach kids and parents what to do about any kind of abuse. So one of the questions that I have is, maybe it would be helpful for all of us to know, is what keeps children from actually talking about abuse?
Well, I think one thing that most adults don't realize is about 80% of all abuse on a child is done by someone the child knows. We hear a lot about strangers on the news and that sort of thing, but it's really most likely a relative, a family member, a neighbor, somebody the child already somewhat knows and has some form of relationship with. And because of that, especially if it's a family member or a relative, the perpetrator may have been very skilled at threatening the child or scaring the child and making the child feel that it's partially the child's fault, especially if part of the abuse wasn't painful. Maybe part of the abuse actually felt pleasurable. And they'll ask the child, that didn't hurt, did it? And the child will say no, and they'll say, well, then you don't need to tell anybody. So it could be threats or it could be some sort of even bribery. We've had cases where kids are bribed with candy or money or promises of a new bicycle or a new video game. And so, of course, all children like getting gifts, and especially if it's some adult that they already have some trusting relationship with, it makes it much more difficult for them to tell. So if the child doesn't feel that they're going to be believed by family members, I always spend time helping the child understand that even though a family member might seem upset when the child first discloses something, that the adult is upset about what has happened to the child. They're not upset at the child. So I think that's very, very important. Occasionally, the child will actually believe the threats the perpetrator has made, so they'll decide that they want to keep silent. Especially if the household has the atmosphere that we don't talk about our private body parts. We're not allowed to say penis or vagina or buttocks. And the parents might view those things as yucky or icky or nasty, or we don't talk about that. That sort of kind of enforced silence within the house will certainly prevent a child from feeling comfortable to talking about those things on any level. So that will certainly prevent them. Sometimes, especially with younger children, if they haven't had any sort of prevention education, they don't know how to put into words what has actually happened to them. So they don't have language for it, which, of course, can be a barrier to telling. And we always try to teach our kids to be respectful and obedient to grown-ups. And that's fine if it's a good grown-up, but some grown-ups don't behave properly around children. So if we just automatically tell them they have to do whatever a grown-up says, we're really doing a misservice to the child, because we could be actually inadvertently putting them in a dangerous situation.
And I would think one of the hardest ones is when the adult tries to befriend the child. And let's say that the child is having a difficult time at home, or they're being ignored, that someone will come in and spend a lot of time with them to really attend to them. And that, I think, would be very confusing for the child to try and figure out how to say, is this abuse, or because they've gotten so much out of that attention?
Absolutely. That can be a real issue for children. But I also tell the children that people that mistreat kids tend to tell lies. And in the video that the children see, it's illustrated in not a graphic way that an uncle is sexually inappropriately touching a nephew of his. And you see the little boy go through the scenario in his head that he's confused because I love my uncle, and my uncle started out by hugging me, and that was okay because he's always been so nice to me. But now he's touched me under my clothes, and he's touching me underneath my underwear, and it's making me uncomfortable. And you see the little boy progress in his mind, weighing both of the things of how do I explain this? And he goes into further discussion about, I don't know how to tell my mom. This is my mom's brother. What if she doesn't believe me? He's a grown-up. And it's done in such a clear, specific way. I think it really helps the children be able to balance those two opposite things and realize that we can love someone and still dislike something that the person is doing to us.
That's a great point. That's a great point, and one to really be learned, because you have to teach that.
Yes, absolutely.
You really have to teach that. So what can we as parents, teachers, adults do to help create a safe environment for if kids need to talk to us about these very difficult things, that they feel that they can do that?
One of the most important things is making your child understand that you will believe them if they tell you.
And how would you go about doing that?
Well, I think for most of us, when a child comes to us with something that is this extreme of a report, let's say, that children generally do not make up lies about this sort of thing. They might lie that I didn't do my homework, or I stuffed the broccoli under the couch cushion, but they generally really don't invent stories about abuse, especially sexual abuse. So I think whenever a child has a confident grown-up that they don't feel is going to be judgmental or critical or blaming of them, they are much more apt to come to that person when something is not feeling right or going well and disclose to that person. One of the things that's so difficult but so important, and it's very hard, is to not look traumatized when the child tells you. Because when a child feels like they're upsetting the grown-up that they're telling, they tend to do a couple things. One, they'll just shut down and quit giving a report about it. Or if the grown-up seems horrified and then tries to get the child to retell the story to other grown-ups, in the child's mind, the child may feel, I told it wrong the first time, and now I'm being asked to repeat it, so I'm going to leave that part that I think upset the person out. Or they might think, I didn't say the right thing, so I'm going to add some things in. And if abuse has actually gone on and there needs to be some sort of an investigation by child welfare or the police, it's very important that any member of the public has not pre-interrogated the child, because to the child that means I didn't do it right. So that's very, very important. And also just that you reassure the child that whatever has happened, that it absolutely was not the child's fault. It is always the other person's responsibility to treat the child properly. And no matter what they told the child, whether they threatened the child, whether they promised the child by bribing the child, that the child is absolutely blameless and that the child has done an amazing thing by trusting the grown-up and telling the grown-up. And also reassuring the child that this has happened to other kids and that you can still have a happy, healthy life as long as you tell someone and you accept the support and the help to heal.
And I would think, too, that for them to know that by them telling it will help others, because then others will not be put into the same place, too. Do you let the kids know exactly what will happen when they do tell you, so that they know what the progression will be and that the police will be involved and the social services will be involved?
We do. We not with the pre-Ks. We don't go into that sort of investigative information with them. But with the older children, I explain what child welfare does. I explain that somebody would probably come to school. If your teacher made the report, they'll come and talk to the teacher. They'll talk to you. They may go and actually visit the family or whoever is responsible for the alleged abuse. And that there are lots of steps that the perpetrators can be given. They can be given parenting instruction. We have parenting classes at Calm that people get sent to. It might be that the parent needs mental health treatment and has had no access. And so by someone filing a report with Child Welfare Services, it can give the family access to many services in the community that they would otherwise not have access to. So I try to emphasize that the last thing child welfare wants to do is take a child away from a mom and a dad, but that there's lots of things that grown-ups can need support with: mental health issues, substance abuse, poverty, various things, and that people are trying to help the family. We're not trying to disband the family. And that on rare occasions where there is no extended family that can help the child, that then there's something called foster care. And I explain what foster care looks like in our county and how that might affect a child. But that really does not happen as much as we may think.
So how is this program all funded?
We have a grant from the city of Santa Barbara and one from the city of Goleta. We take private donations. We're always very underfunded, so if anybody would like to support us, we would be more than happy to accept that assistance. But it's one of the longest running programs at Calm, and even without funding, we will go. We're not going to stop until there are no more abused children.
Okay, so tell us how they can reach you.
I can be reached at Calm by calling the 805-965-2376. That's our phone number, and they can ask for Ann Bryant or the Calm Lady. Or my email is abryant, abryant, at CALM, 4, kids, KIDS.org. And we'll go even to private schools if they would like to pay for our services. We will go anywhere that wants us to come educate the children.
Okay, and then you can just also go to the general website, which is calm4kids.org.
Yes.
Okay, and I will also put that all on my website. But I really want to thank you for coming here, but more, I'd like to thank you for all of the work that you're doing, because I think that when we can reach the kids at this age, we have a chance of really helping them.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to have this job at Calm. Thank you.
All right. We'll be right back. I'm Kimberly Taylor, and you're listening to KZSB AM 1290. As we come to close, I just want to say that whatever you have going on in your life or whatever goals that you are trying to reach, we here are trying to give you ideas about how to push yourself forward. So be a positive force in your life and know that by doing that, your life will also begin to change into the life that you always wanted. I want to thank you for joining me, and I want to thank my guest. And once more, if you would like to find out about CALM, you can go to my website, and I will put all of the info on there about how to reach them. Also, if you would like to send in an email, just go to Dr. Kim at drkimtaylorshow.com. These shows will also be rebroadcast tonight at 10 and Sundays at 9. And if you couldn't call in on Sunday. Just go to my website at drkimtaylorshow.com. I will be back here next Thursday between 2 and 3, and in the meantime, have a great week. And let me leave you with this. Nobody else has to change in order for you to get better.